joining us right now that maybe can help us understand it all is
I'm here.
Okay, Mike, I'm sorry. Somebody keeps reaching into my computer and muting my mic. I can see it. I'm not even touching the computer, and it keeps happening. So if it does, I'll just keep putting it back on. But can they do that, Mike? Do they have the technology?
They like you. Sure.
They like
you.
They like
me.
Who's they? Heidi said, who's they?
The ones not here. They like you.
The ones that aren't here. They like me. They like me. I appreciate it. Mike, great to have you tonight. How you doing tonight?
Good to be here. Busy night.
Really is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a busy night.
Did you hear the chatter report that I got? I don't know if you heard me read that or not.
Not yours.
Okay. Let me read it, and then you tell us what you know. This came to me at 6:36 p.m. Eastern from one of our sources in the intelligence community. It said there's a lot of chatter tonight. The chatter is there's a joint Iranian Hezbollah attack on Israel will begin tonight and will last several days. This is the chatter now. It's not official. It's a chatter. Israel's government has ordered the IDF, all air, land, and sea troops to be ready for battle immediately. Israel's considering the possibility of a preemptive, deep into Lebanon strike before Nasrallah and Hezbollah reacts. Now, that's just chatter. Mike, what have you heard going out there tonight?
Well, it's a little more than chatter. The fuel, the jet fuel, right?
Okay.
A lot of this, the jet fuel was waiting, so some of the attacks were timed so that they would have jet fuel, JP-8. It just reached Israel not too long ago, so they should be fueled and ready to go when they are. They're going to have air support, long durational air support, and that's needed before any intensive ground operations and other operations.
Whoa.
The Ayatollah, of course, he vowed harsh punishment, right?
Right.
And he gave some orders not too long ago. So he's coordinating. There's a lot of coordination between Hezbollah, Houthis in Yemen, and Iranian-backed other Iranian-backed groups. I believe about 2 or 3. So they are up in arms about this now. They do have the USA component. So what's happening in the White House is they are actually they're being forced to deal with this whole thing. It's a pretty heavy situation, which could last for about a 20-day period.
Wow.
So that's what everybody's gearing up to. So, yeah, before they start operations, they're going to secure certain individuals within Israel, of course.
Yes.
And they're going through preempt checks right now. They should be done with those checks, but they will start to gate off parts of the populace and get everything ready. The machine is moving, and so is the U.S. machine, because we may be forced to do air engagement.
So when you say that the planes are being fueled and ready, are you talking U.S. jets, U.S. planes?
These are the Israeli Air Force is being fueled.
Okay.
They rely upon our jet fuel, right, which is shipped out of Corpus Christi and places like that in Texas. So it just arrived. A lot of that fuel just arrived not too long ago, about a day ago, and then it was at port. But they're getting everything fueled up, so they're ready to go. Before any operation, you'll always see that they always fuel their aircraft.
A lot of fuel has to be stored and prepared and ready. So you're saying they've already got it there. It's arrived. So what groups do you think, when you say 2 or 3 groups? I mean, obviously Hezbollah would be one, right? Do you see the Iranians as well?
Yeah, Hezbollah from Lebanon, right?
Yes.
And it's one of the well, you have to remember, you have Iranian troops are right there in Lebanon. Right, they're in Lebanon. So Hezbollah also means Iran. That's a direct engagement. They know that. In fact, the biggest expectation is Lebanon right now. So they're gearing up to this. They see the movement, of course, and We do too. So he's, Iran is not just, talking this time. They have issued orders. They actually issued orders, and they affirmed those orders today. But and the last time they talked about that was about an hour ago. So,
wow.
Yeah, they're definitely.
Do you think
they're
tonight?
In this one.
Do you think tonight? Who do you think is going to hit first? Do you think Israel will wait, or will Israel preempt, or will they just meet them in the air?
Well, it depends on what they say. I would, if I were Israel, if I saw the movement, I would not wait. They already understand they do not have the support of the average person out there. The average person in the world does not really comprehend the gravity of what's happening. They really don't. And so he's not going to wait for that. Just like he ordered this what happened today and what happened a couple of days ago, what's about to happen in a few minutes. He's not going to wait on anybody. He already saw how people look at Israel, but he has no choice but to survive. If he does not, if he waits, that just wouldn't be a good idea.
So Netanyahu,
because they can overwhelm Iron Dome and other defensive assets with sheer numbers of launches, and they know this, right? So you want to handle that as soon as you get a grip on exactly what's happening. Although they do suspect Iran will likely begin. They always begin this way. They always begin by hitting military targets.
Okay.
To make it seem
like they're trying to play fair.
Some sort of collateral damage here, but they understand the stakes are much higher than that, right? Nobody can forget October 7th, right? You're looking at it. You're looking at groups of people. If given the opportunity, they would decimate, slaughter anybody they could. And this one gives me, you ever get that feeling? You ever get, through all of what Israel has been through, right? I've never had a feeling that I have right now. I was even over there, right? When the Gulf War began.
Okay.
I was there. I was right there. But I never had this feeling. This feeling is one of those, I don't know. It's almost like the people are not quite ready to see what they're about to see. And it's going to cause, well, I hate to say it, but a lot more division, and scoffers will come out of the woodwork as it progresses. It's going to be one of those events that people will take these awkward positions, these mouth referees, that you see that start talking against Israel when they perceive that something unfortunate has happened. I do believe this time is Iran knows they have good intelligence. That makes them very dangerous. That's why no one just runs into Iran, and they don't do things like that, right?
No.
All these years, keep in mind, with the threat Iran actually posed, no one stepped into Iran to do anything about it, right? No. With all the nuclear weapons talk, no one stepped into Iran. They won't directly engage Iran because it's a larger picture than what most think. And
Iran is definitely not weak. They've got well-trained soldiers, and they've got some great equipment. They're technologically more advanced than we thought, and they've got some help with the Russians and the Chinese and the North Koreans. I mean, this is a serious situation. Their possibilities. Am I right?
Yeah. Also, if Iran plans a large-scale assault, you better believe America has to be neutralized within that assault effort. They will never go full force at Israel and leave America alone. They're not going to do that. So everybody should also expect in the UK at the Olympics, right?
Right.
Macron better be ready. The Queen and the King and everybody else, they better be ready because you're going to have operatives who not only strike in the Middle East, but also in other places. They already tried parts of that this morning again. So there are threats that they're not talking about. They can't make these threats public, but there are many threats in the USA too, all over the place, and that's a whole lot of coordination for defense.
Is the White House on high alert right now?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Okay. Yes, they are. All military personnel are highly engaged in this one because we have a threat here in the homeland, in the USA. Right?
Okay.
There's a threat in the UK. Right now, there's a threat in Germany. Right now, there's a threat in France. Right now, Israeli they doubled some of the people who watch after the Israeli athletes. Right?
Yes.
I mean, the threats increased this morning like you wouldn't believe. Right?
Wow.
There have been attempts. There have been people caught. There have been gunmen caught. Right. So
wow.
there have been these attempts that have been put down, thank God, so far. But how long is that going to last? You know, they're coming out of the woodwork. You're looking at hundreds of millions of people who could potentially be operatives. They certainly do favor Iran. Right. You're also looking at other countries in the Middle East who are going to break ties. If anything of scale breaks out between Israel and Iran, hear me on this, you're going to have countries in the Middle East like Pakistan who are going to turn tables, and they're going to side with the Islamic population.
Absolutely.
Right? Because what happened tonight was an Islamic call. That was an Islamic call.
Okay, so is this part of the chatter? It's not just Iran and Hezbollah and wait and see what they're going to do with Israel. This is more of an Islamic call throughout.
Yes, it is. It's turning into a holy war.
Holy war, yeah.
This is turning into a holy war. And it's starting to pick up momentum. Unlike other times, you know, in other times, nobody really moved on that. It just wasn't. People were not there yet. But as you can see, take the U.S. for example. There is a hatred. It's almost like one of those fallen seraphims are right here on this earth, stirring up all sorts of things where it can, right here on this earth. And there's a evil here in America.
Wow.
And it takes advantage of anybody it can. But just like, you know, demons do, they get people irritated and aggravated. And as soon as they get a person irritated and aggravated, that person starts to, you know, embrace sin. And that's what they do. And they try to provoke people that, well, it's working because you have people who are normally not so aggressive. They're being aggressive. The politics sets everybody off like they're a book of matches ready to go. Right.
Right.
Yeah. A good time to step back if a person gets emotionally compromised by such things, cut it off. They should cut themselves off from it. But it's building. You know, it's building up. This is just one of those large scale things that God determined this from the beginning, but we see it. Sometimes we see things forming we don't want to acknowledge right away, right? A lot of people, but they're going to have no choice, Pastor Paul. They're going to see this. And I can foresee something here. Okay. This feeling that I have.
Yes.
I can foresee, maybe not all of it in the next 48 hours, though some of it will be, but I can foresee a fight, some sort of confrontation building. But ultimately, you know what they're going to do to Israel momentarily. But here's what they don't know. Just like when we're in our homes, right? We say you have an issue or you have a problem and you just want to relax for a minute before you take care of the problem. So you sit back and you watch a movie, right? But then all of a sudden your roof falls in. And you say, oh, you get up, you stop the movie, it's an emergency again. You end up taking care of everything. Well, that's what the Lord is doing with Israel. With Israel, you'll see people go into Israel. You'll see them attack. But what they don't know is the Lord's doing that on purpose. He's the one that's calling them down there to do that. Why? Because ultimately he said, in the end, they're going to know what? That he is the Lord. Right?
Yeah, I read.
They're going to know it. They won't suspect it. They're going to know it. And if the whole world is going to know that, you know we're about to go through something. And he's going to use Israel to wake the entire earth up. So these things that are unfolding, I also believe they're biblical. These are biblical things, Amen. Which is why no one's been able to divert what's been happening.
You know,
right? I also believe that, Pastor Paul, when they do this,
yes.
When they see a siege in Jerusalem, when they see things, we don't know what will happen, but we know at some point it's going to look like they have succeeded. And that's when the world is going to say, hey, peace and safety now, right?
Right.
We've gotten these elements out of Israel that shouldn't be there, peace and safety. And then kapui, that's when everybody who set their hearts against Israel, they're going to pay for it.
Let me read one verse for you, and this is what you're talking about, Ezekiel 38, verse 16, the Bible says, "And thou shalt come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days, and I will bring thee against my land, that the heathen may know me, when I shall be sanctified in thee, O Gog, before their eyes." So do you see this? And I know you know these scriptures. So, earlier we read Psalms 83 a little bit. We've read Ezekiel 38 here a little bit. We went into Zechariah 12 about the cup of trembling.
Looks like all of them done it.
Yeah, and even Jesus said, when you see armies passing, know the desolation is nigh. So when you said you had a feeling, you were in the Gulf, and I take it you was probably in the Gulf in 91. Maybe you was there
91 and after that.
And after that. Okay, so you had a feeling, it was anticipating of war. But right now, that feeling is stronger. Am I correct?
Yeah, the first time it wasn't, Israel is a sacred place for me, right?
Right.
Even in uniform, I didn't want to step foot on the soil. I did not. It felt like it was defiling it or something like that, right? So, yeah, but because I have respect for everything the Lord did, right?
Right, of course.
But this time, this is almost like one of those gut-wrenching feelings, right? Like there's going to be some sort of change, a different thing happening, where people get riled up, right? Where good people start looking at the situation, and if they don't understand the Bible, they're going to be disheartened, right? They may be disheartened because it has to look that way to draw the world's attention, right?
Yes.
Plus, there are people in Israel that should not be in Israel. There are people in Israel that hate Israel, so they're going to be plucked out by this event also.
Wow.
The same folks, a lot of these folks are working against. I know people don't like Bibi, right? But they're working against Bibi. Bibi has a heart for that nation.
Sure he does.
He does. He has a heart for that. If people understood the real deal behind that guy, why would anybody subject themselves to that type of social torment? For what?
Nobody would
do that. But they don't understand the whole story. All they know is what the media is telling them. They can't, how the media is. They interpret things, backward. But I can foresee, it's almost like this feeling that, okay, this is going to be serious.
So
which means the last times have not been serious, right? Not the last times were devastating. October 7th was devastating.
Awful.
But this time, think of something much worse.
I'm dreading to even try to comprehend what that would be much worse, but I know it could be, because the weapons that could be used are so much more sophisticated and much more.
Yeah, they're not. They're certainly not what they've been using. That a couple of rounds, it went right through Iron Dome. A drone went through Iron Dome.
How'd that happen, Mike? How did that soccer field get hit?
Right. So when you look at situation, and that was a demonstration of, hey, look what we can do.
Yeah.
Right. Look what we can do. America. Now, people ought to be reminded of this. They can say what they want, but we understand that we have critical gaps in our security, our cybersecurity. We had a loss of phone usage. We had Microsoft that went kaput. And you know what? One guy from Microsoft, who was one of the PR guys, and he was trying to say that, this software that they made, here's what it does. He was trying to explain it. The problem is, if you go look at the roster or the manifest of those who are employed with Microsoft in that field, you're going to find that many of them are from Pakistan, many of them are from Russia, many of them are from, parts of them. This is what you face in the IT or computer or programming environment, period. You have a lot of people who are educated, masters in this stuff, right? And they're from overseas, and they happen to be biased for the Middle East against Israel. So they don't like Israel, right?
No.
They don't. They're sympathetic to Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and they're working right here in this. Did they get here legally? Yes. And so what I'm saying is, we're facing something beyond the obvious. This is something that we're facing an enemy you can't see. right? Because you really don't know unless you have God-given discernment.
Amen.
You don't know who's authentic and who's loyal to
Yes.
what in this nation, right? You don't know that. And these people are rising up all over the place. The UK is going to have that problem probably tomorrow morning again. Germany is going to have that problem. France will have that problem. All these Western nations are going to face the same thing. This incident has done nothing but it's unleashed a lot of hatred and evil, and you have a lot of young people in Iran who are they're ready to risk everything. And everybody ought to do one more thing. Keep in mind, when you're talking about a holy war, as a Christian, you're not going to go somewhere and go blow yourself up and think you're going to heaven. Overseas, they will go anywhere and blow themselves up and think they're going to heaven for blowing themselves up. Anything to kill the infidel. Yeah. Anything to kill the infidel. So this is a
war.
A very serious. This
well, what
is
about
big
these
place.
planes? Okay, what about Delta, United? Several. I think BP just said there's 7 different now airlines that have canceled all.
Yeah, when you close airspace, right?
Yeah,
you better believe that place is going to be lit up with radar, right? You're going to have anti-missile systems probing that area. They send off these. You don't want, if a plane is in front of one of those systems, say it's 35,000 feet away, and a Patriot, one of the old Patriot radar dishes points towards it on a burst right before it scans the sky, it'll burn that aircraft to pieces. Birds drop dead in front of it and everything, right? So that's how powerful some of these radar bursts are when they send out. They have to clear that airspace. Plus, Russia increased its radius on its active net in the Middle East.
Wow.
Right? So they have a big bubble over Iran. It's fully activated.
So you're dealing with Russian. So you're dealing with Russian defense mechanisms.
Yes, you are.
So when we hear people say, or when the chatter says, "Hey, Israel might just do a preemptive strike," you got to understand that isn't that easy of a deal. No,
it's not. So they need very specific aircraft and maneuvers to do that. The Mossad, of course, they're all over the place, but they can only do so much without.
Let's talk about that assassination, spotted. Mike, in that the one in Iran, how they planted the bomb, or at least I'm hearing they had the bomb already planted. Residential guest house. How did Mossad? How did they get into these places so well? I mean, the Bible says God sent 12 spies, and so he knows how to use the Israelis for spies, but this is quite an extraordinary event, wasn't it?
Well, the Mossad, right? These guys are dedicated, right? So the life of somebody who works with the Mossad, they may deploy for duty. Some of them have deployed 1988. They have not gone back to Israel yet. They will not contact Israel. They communicate through specific means. They become a part of the country that they're going to, look at or see things in. They become a part of the populace.
They can speak Farsi.
That's right. Yeah. They gain friends. They do what the people do, and nobody suspects that they are Mossad. They will never give up their position. If they do, that's going to be a very unfortunate death, right? So they don't give up their position. But when they go out in the field, they sever all connections. They don't contact family or anybody else. And they communicate in these in very sophisticated ways without speech, right? They do it through movies. They do it through commercials. They do it through lots of different ways. So they can set up different things and walk away from it, right? When it's needed, go back and do that. Right. That's also called that's a power move that they also use, because once the enemy knows that you could have planted something anywhere, it makes them paranoid.
Yeah,
that's one of the points, right? It's kind of like when we went against Iraq to get Saddam Hussein, we made their guys think that UFOs were in the air. Right, so all those who were gullible, they were chasing drones and they thought they were UFOs, and it was just to cause a little discord. So you have these operations constantly taking place like that. It's a cat and mouse thing. But intelligence, when it comes back, it's mind blowing. Like nobody would believe how many troops Iran really has. Right? Everybody looks at China. They didn't even look at Iran, right? Nobody understands the hardened infrastructure of Iran underground. They can blow up the top side all they want. They're not going to touch Iran,
Right.
Right.
What about
Iran extends all the way into Iraq.
Yes. What about
So it's a mess.
What about Erdogan making his major threats toward Israel, and then the Israeli foreign minister said, I think he's the finance minister, Schmoltz, made the statement to Erdogan, if you're not careful, basically, you're going to wind up like Saddam Hussein, hanging by your own people.
Because they know they understand what's happening is turning into this a faith-based war, right? So their fundamental belief is that Israel does not belong there, right?
Right.
So they believe Israel is there illegally, right? That no one's going to change that belief until the Lord, appears. So that's what they believe. Turkey, anybody. That's why I don't trust Jordan. I do not trust Jordan.
No.
They have done some things. And Saudi Arabia, they're going to get rid of them because they toggle and switch too much. But anyway, Turkey has always had that mindset that they're going to lead this next holy war. They have this grandiose idea that somehow Turkey houses the Mahdi.
Yeah.
That all these different things that he's absorbed with, right?
He thinks he's the caliph, doesn't he? He thinks he is.
Yeah, he does. But that makes him a very dangerous person. But unlike Saddam Hussein, he's sophisticated. He's not paranoid,
That's
right?
true.
He's very calculated in everything he does, and he's well educated. So he's quite different than Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
He's not a madman. Saddam Hussein thought he was Gilgamesh and some other folks. So that didn't,
that didn't work out too well. No.
And he was just ruthless. Saddam Hussein was the most ruthless person on the face of the earth. He was worse than Hitler. Just they didn't publish everything he did.
The butcher from
Baghdad.
They
just didn't do it.
Yeah.
Since he was a kid, right? Since he was a child, this guy was rotten to the core. This guy was evil.
And he trained Houday and Qusay to be just like him, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And well, he trained an entire, you could say, brigade of people, right, to do exactly what he does. And here's the problem, though. They only caught 15 of those, 15 out of 1,000 people. Who knows where the rest of them
Where's the rest
right?
of them? Wow.
But then you figure out all this activity against the U.S. and Israel. Where, hey, there you are. And
okay.
But this event is likely to unleash other things.
Are you concerned? And I don't want you to say anything bad about. And you're not going to anyway. I'm a little nervous about the current administration, and I'm nervous about who's really there. But we've got some great generals along the line here. They're watching.
Yeah, it's ran by a council right now.
The presidency's run by a council.
Yeah, it's been run by a council for a little bit.
Well, is it a military council, Mike? Well,
it's an inclusive council. So you think of the some of the great minds, right? Strategic minds. Is if you look at Austin, right? It's why he responds the way he does. Have you noticed he won't really answer questions?
No, he won't.
He always diverts.
Right.
And then, but there's like this common thread to all of them, right? Because they want to consult each other before they go forward on anything. Now the pundits don't help it any. And I believe that Harris, nobody elected Harris. They didn't. She just was thrown in there. It's just kind of showing people what they do. But
is she a Manchurian candidate then? I mean,
no. But everybody ought to get ready for some changes. It is probably will not. The outcome is not going to be what folks think. And they understand, Pastor Paul. They understand the timing in the heavens too. Remember that.
Okay.
They can see everything in the heavens, and they know when they only have a short window of time to get things completed. Right. So if think about this, I'm going to say if something is headed here, like back in the ancient days, right? If something is headed here to devastate parts of the planet, you better believe they're going to take full advantage of that activity. Right. They understand what it's going to cause here on this earth. So they're going to have plans in between there so they can actually accomplish any and everything they want to accomplish. And never forget, these guys directly serve Satan himself.
Yes.
That's who they serve, Satan himself. So ultimately, they are If you look at Washington, the reason why they're so easily maneuvered, and the reason why it seems just everybody up there, their morality meter drops when money is introduced. They swap, change sides, this, that, and the other, is because those guys need money and they understand that they can't live without the money, that they're not like a true believer who understands that God is their supplier.
Amen.
Right.
Amen.
So, but it makes them willing to do and say anything to please whoever's, supplying their little perks and paying for their houses. Unless they do like Florida, where every government official has to disclose exactly what they're getting. That's funny to me. That's funny. But way to go, Florida. I think they should do that everywhere.
I mean, that's right.
But anyway, that's what they do. They're sold out to money. They really are. So they'll change at the drop of a dime based upon who's paying them, pretty much.
All right, Mike. We'll come back to this in a second here. But there's some other things also that are happening that I wanted to get your take on. And this gamma ray, I don't know, I'm sure you've probably heard of this gamma ray burst. They call it the boat, the biggest of all time. It was so bright, so outrageous.
Yes.
The James Webb Satellite Telescope's seen it. It may be a supernova. Can you tell me what that is? There any danger to us here, or is there something going on?
Well, we have dangers, but not from that. Not from that burst. We have a issue with another magnetar, and just to refresh everybody's mind, back in 2004, before this global warming thing really blew up, right?
Okay.
Our atmosphere was stripped. Part of it was stripped by magnetar near the poles, and that magnetar was powerful. It messed up parts of Mars, and it messed up some of our satellites and everything else. But in fact, as soon as that hit, they had emergency meetings at the UN concerning the climate. The climate, it began just like this, right? And nobody has to believe me, but climate change began back in 2004 with that magnetar.
A magnetar.
Because the atmosphere was stripped by this magnetar. It's the most deadly force humanity could ever encounter.
Can you explain to me for me and in layman terms, what is a magnetar?
A magnetar is a very dense. Think of our sun, right? Think of our sun. Okay. But think of our sun with all of its power being squashed down to the size of a tennis ball.
What?
Right?
Are you serious?
Now think of that. Yes. Now, as it's being squashed, it gets heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. Right? So all these condensed stars, they face a time of shifting and quakes as they condense, right before some of them form black holes, some do not, things like this happen. So it is estimated a 1-inch cube moved on that magnetar surface, causing a blast so powerful that it traveled, I believe it was hundreds of thousands of light years, right? Okay. Light years. So you're talking about something that went off
way back
when Adam was, back there in that time, and it just hit Earth in 2004 and ripped the top of Earth. It barely skimmed, right, the upper, way in the upper portions of our atmosphere, but it was so powerful. It took a piece of the atmosphere off with it. And if anybody can remember, that's when they had the ozone problem, right? That's when they had these no-go zone areas on the Earth, and it was quite dangerous because people died that day, right? The atmosphere, those who were under where the atmosphere was stripped were cooked like they were in a microwave, and it only took about 15 to 20 seconds, and they were dead because there was no protection from all that radiation coming in. So anyway, that happened. They had emergency meetings the next day, and then some of the political folks said, "Hey, we can raise money on this. All we have to do is popularize and make this, some subject." And then there you go, the global warming. But it took off in the wrong direction. You had Al Gore and 3 other components that were there. Plus, you had some of these trillionaires or billionaires, you call them, that were there, and they took part of this in the wrong direction, right? Trying to raise awareness for climate change, they turned it into a cause. And of course, you have these kids out here who were they were primed to protect the earth over humanity, right? They'll save a tree and kill 100 people if they have to. But they were primed for this, and it just totally went in the wrong direction. You had bad people that were getting rich from this, and they went too far. And now the message is just totally gone, right? Because everybody should be reminded that without humanity. Yeah, there's a threat, but without humanity, right? Even with all the civilizations that have been on this earth have been destroyed, the earth is just fine, right? It is. It's just fine because, but anyway, that's what happened with that. So we have another magnetar out there. They know it's out there, and they estimate that it sent a burst off, and that burst as an ETA, they're going to narrow down, and James Webb is going to help them triangulate this burst to calculate when that inbound date is. Now, it is so bad that you have every country right now building neutrino detectors, right? It will help detect all that energy coming in. They're boring out mountains. Whole mountains. They're taking out the insides. They're turning them into big water tanks, and they're going to put the neutrino detector inside that water, right? So you're look up the project in Japan, for example, right? They have hollowed out a mountain. They're going to fill it with water. A neutrino detector goes inside of that mountain. Now, when you see these plans, have an understanding that what they're publicizing is one thing, right? What they've actually done, this began back in 2000, and I believe 2009.
Okay.
All this began in 2009. So, because they really have to have all this information right on the money. They have to have.
What do you call this? A neutrino?
Neutrino detectors. They normally put them deep into the earth, right? And they detect these charged particles coming from things like supernovae and things like that. So a magnetar, those are the best indicators for inbound, these inbound energy streams.
A latrine. I know a latrine's a toilet, Heidi. I didn't say that. I said latrino. I thought he said latrino. Okay.
Well, they have latrines in the neutrino detectors.
I'm sure they have latrines in the neutrino detectors. Okay, so they hollowed out an entire mountain. They hollowed out an entire mountain to store water.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really
super clean
like
water.
Like a cistern, but a big cistern.
And the neutrino detector goes inside.
Okay.
All that pure water. Now listen, here's a kicker. This is pure water. Pure water.
Okay.
And when I mean pure, it is the cleanest. It's the cleanest water on the earth that they can actually store inside of a mountain. Okay.
Wow.
And the neutrino detector goes in there. Now there are about 8 or 9 projects like that happening right now
around the world.
Look around the world. Look at Japan, and you'll find out the size of these things. You will not believe how big this tank is. You will not believe how big this tank is. And they have these. They have put some of these all over the place. Or building more. All the countries are in on it. And it just so happens that all these mountains are off limits during any international conflict. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
All those mountains are off limits. So they'll hit everything but those mountains, right?
Because they would know not to do that. That would be devastating to the human race, Well,
they're going to save themselves.
Right.
Now, everything they do is to save themselves. They're really not going to save the populace. They're going to save themselves. Some of those guys may be doing an honest day's work, but the masterminds who are paying for this, they know exactly what they're doing.
Right.
They know exactly what they're doing.
So that's going on all around the world. It's probably
but we have those are real problems. And will we get hit by a magnetar? You better believe it. We're going to feel probably, I would say, 1/7 of our atmosphere is going to feel the grunt of a blow of a magnetar.
Tearing off the top of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Which
that's an instant pressure change. It's also an instant. You're gonna have that's when, if we have that pressure change like that, the waters on the coastlines are going to instantly boil, right? Be high humidity instantly. I don't think anybody's going to have the ability to breathe. In fact, that same activity took place back in the time of Egypt. Something happened to our atmosphere. Of course, when you have something, an intruder out there, right, that's messing with our atmosphere, you're going to have a change in pressure. Pressure determines what boils and what does not. Water can boil, at room temperature. It honestly can. It cause humidity to be all over the place without all the excessive heat, but the humidity can be so high you won't be able to breathe.
Well, I know.
That's right. You'll effectively drown if you're near the coastlines.
So this is crazy. I understand that when high humidity, you can't hardly breathe because it literally, you're breathing almost water. Like if you have 90% humidity, it is very difficult to breathe. You're saying it's even going to be worse than that.
It'd be worse than 100%. It'd be well over 100%. It'll be almost full saturation.
So do you expect this to take place before we have to deal with
this will? I think this will. Within the next 2 years, we're going to be facing. In fact, listen, Pascal, this is not for me, but a lot of people don't think we're going to make it past. They really, honestly, do not believe we're going to make it past 2025. They do not.
Because of this.
I'll go so. Well, that and some other things.
Okay.
Right? Because we have more things coming from space. We do. In fact, it was said in the last, 7 days that people are starting to notice the markets. Now, this was said, people are starting to notice the markets. Well, don't worry about it. We still have time. This is an actual quote. And if you take note of the market, let me tell you what's happening with the markets. You do realize that the USA, the USA is going to use, now we talked about this on your program a few times, right? Yep. A few times. We were talking about crypto.
Yes.
My big concern was how they're going to use the crypto system. It is a perfected system. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
They're going to take the USA is buying up Bitcoin.
Yes.
You know that, don't you?
Oh,
buying up Bitcoin.
Well, I heard it. Heidi was telling me
Bitcoin.
there's like $2 trillion of worth of Bitcoin was just transferred all of a sudden by the government. By the government. Okay.
Now, what they're going to do is that's going to be a base currency. Okay. Right? Bitcoin. Why is this? Because the other nations are doing the same thing, which is why you're going to see, because you're going to hear this statement from leaders. They're going to say, I wish, somebody ought to level Bitcoin. Level it out, right? Which means take it off that 70 or 64,000 mark, bring it down to a level where all the other countries can get in. Now, this conversation took place 2 weeks ago. All of a sudden, everybody is shifting in their view concerning Bitcoin, including all these other nations.
So
China,
they want to bring that. It's at 64 right
Russia.
Now. They want to bring it down to like 50 or something, 50,000.
They want to bring it down lower than that. It's probably go lower than that, just for a little while,
and then shoot it back up.
You're going to have new investors. Now, when it goes, here's the deal though. When it goes back up, it's going to be worth 5 or 6 times more than what it's worth right now.
Right.
Because you're going to have countries. And that's their main backing.
Countries.
They've already the mining system and everything will be tokenized. Number one, they've already set that up with the CBDC. That's a done deal. Everything will be tokenized, and then you'll have natural assets that they're now labeling. And what that means is a tree, right, is going to be owned by somebody. Every piece of land is going to be owned by somebody. By the end of December, everything on this earth is going to be tokenized, which means everything will be earned, which means the rich will have full power over everything. This will be done by December, which means anybody who's outside of that system, guess what?
They're left out.
There are no free zones. You cannot buy or sell unless they will have total control over that. This is by December. We're not talking about the elections. We're not talking about that. We're talking about by December. And so they've got a rush on this, right?
That's why it's been
moving. This is happening right before our eyes.
That's why about $2 trillion moved a couple of days ago, all in one day. And it was done by country. It was done like by countries or some big players, big players. So, and that's why I think it went from it was like at one point it hit 73 and then went down into 66 and then 69 and back to 6. But you're saying there's going to be a leveling to let let a lot more people get in. So it might be taking.
They have U.S. bills, right?
Yeah.
U.S. bills.
Yeah.
With Bitcoin connected to it right now. They're in the mix. The Fed, right? The Fed.
Well, is central banking. You're saying
drafting things.
You're saying it's the CBC. It's the central banking system is going to cannibalize this or take this over and make this the currency of the world.
Well, it's going to be a base of the world. Yeah.
Okay.
That whole system is going to be a base of the world. They understand what's happening. And it's everything is shifting. In truth, you're going to have crypto. The backing of crypto is the system itself.
Okay.
It is a system itself, right? That's a deeply embedded system, a perfected system. It's all over the place. They approved Russia, I was going to say about 5 days ago, to pay their debts with it.
Really?
Germany already used some of their Bitcoin to pay their debt. So when Bitcoin dipped that first time, that was Germany. Emptying out, paying bills. And then it dipped in the last 2 days. That was Russia, right?
Wow.
So you see in the transfer of this stuff, you'll see the USA accumulate quite a bit. So you have other countries jumping in on this thing too. What this means is the digital dollar, right, has been there all this time. They just allowed other people to develop it.
I see.
And now they're going to spring the trap on, the whole thing. That whole thing, yeah.
Well,
because they have the digital IDs. It's a mandate now to the world that everybody has to have that digital ID. And so that makes your cell phone
system.
There it is. Now you have it, right? Well, they're not setting it up. It is set up.
It's already set up.
If they wanted to go right now, they could go right now. Right now. Everything could be, just locked down.
I got you. It's set up. It's ready to go. As soon as somebody pulls the trigger and says, now's the time, there's going to be a major shift. Quick shift.
Yeah, and they're pulling it, and it should be done by December of this year.
That's going to be huge. So, and I mean gigantically huge, okay? Especially if you level it down to 35,000 or something, people are going to panic and bail out. Others are going to buy because they know it's coming back to 100, 125, 130,000, whatever.
You've had 60% liquidations already.
Yeah. Interesting, Mike. Well, I'll keep an eye on that because obviously it ties to prophecy. When you start looking at a beast kingdom where you can't buy or sell unless you get the mark or you take the mark, but involved in that is more than just the finances. It's including worship, right, Mike? And do you see that also happening? Okay.
Well, I cannot help but to see that all of a sudden in the last 2 years, basically, this whole world has become this hater of Israel. Everything they do, is amplified, and people are turning against it. Now we're talking war, and a regional war here at the exact same time. So you have these, all these events popping up at once. I do not think they're happenstance. Sometimes the seasons can be a bit off, and sometimes, things can be a bit premature. But I tell you, Pastor Paul's that's only a smidget of what's actually taking place. So I hope that folks are ready. It's going to be they're not going to like, they're just not going to like what's coming forward. That's one reason why Trump said he probably shouldn't have said it. He said, you won't have to vote, right? He knows. And he told people they would not have to vote the next time voting comes around. He told people that, right? I think he kind of backed off on that a little bit. Did you hear him say that?
I did, and I wondered what he meant exactly.
I don't think, because a lot of people didn't quite understand that. I don't think, because Trump is straightforward.
Right.
He is very straightforward.
Is there going to be a transfer?
Comical, but he's
when he says you won't have to vote, is it because there's going to be just a coordination?
There'll be no president. There'll be no president. He already knows. He already knows, Pastor. He already knows. He knows.
Okay.
He's a. But you know what? Trump is a brilliant guy.
Of course he is.
You can't be and one of the biggest things that gets me about Trump right now, I'm not biased for or against anything like that right now, but Trump, this guy did a master class, and he says things everybody, he's not supposed to say. And he says it with confidence, and he'll repeat it because that's his language. That's what I like about him. You know how most people change based upon these big powers, not him.
No.
If they don't like it, well, that's one thing. That's one thing. When you can trust a person when their language is very consistent, when they don't change because Billy Bob is upset or Carly Sue, when their language is consistent, and they're not trying to be condescending and all that stuff. He will bite back if you bite him. That's just a known fact.
Right.
But he's very consistent in that, right?
Yeah.
And what he did the other day, I laughed so hard on that. That was so funny. It was funny because his engagement was understood by half, but you do have people that try to turn everything into a divisive issue.
Right.
And he won't allow it. He goes back to the same subjects. Why? Because he's fixated on these specific things, right? And you see it, you hear it consistently.
He'll always go back to it. No matter whatever it is.
You hear it consistently.
Yeah, he's consistent.
Right. Now, once he gets that, when that's complete, he understands the time we live in, but he told everybody something. And I'll tell you now, there are just some folks in the White House that Christian folks ought to get themselves really prepared for what they're about to see, because some are going to feel betrayed. It's just not going to be good. And we'll really test where a person's faith is, right? It's really going to test it. Yeah. Those politicians that go up there and do that job, they have their hands full. The ones that are trying to do something for the nation, they have their hands full. Doesn't matter who they are, they get their hands full. It's going to be a fight within itself. And it is very deadly. It's very deadly. But the biggest thing is the people are about to see all this hidden stuff that people normally hide about themselves. Well, even biblically, you notice the transition from in the scriptures. When they get the revelation, nobody lies. Everybody is telling how evil they are. Did you notice that? They were just blaspheming God openly and everything else, right?
Lord, they're doing it right.
But they reserved it before that. So a lot of people are going to see that, and they're going to feel betrayed, because there are people in the White House that will say one thing in front of the cameras, and then when it's off, they look at the numbers. They'll look at the numbers and laugh at each other at how stupid people are.
Yep. They're laughing at us.
They do
right
that.
Now. They're laughing
how dumb they are.
They're laughing at the American people right now.
They honestly do that. That's why I said, if Christians do not pray, if they don't intercede, Satan's going to have a field day with all those folks who are not covered. Because if you're not covered by the blood of the Lamb, you have no protection. And I'm not talking about. We're not talking about somebody claiming it. We're talking about somebody being a Christian. They have no protection. If Christians do not pray this time, this is it. This is that last call.
This is. I agree. It is, and you can see it developing in culturally, in politically, in militarily, and Israel, and Christians are being persecuted. Jews are being persecuted. Yeah. We really are in the final stretch, I think, when you start thinking this through. And so individually, I think you've always been good. You've been very consistent in this, Mike. You'll always talk about everything, and then you'll say, but if people don't get themselves right with God and walk according to the Lord and really get rooted and grounded, they'll fall. They'll collapse. They'll be run over. And that's so, in other words, no matter what's going on around us, personal relationship with Christ is essential. It's beyond essential. It's absolutely mandatory. If you don't have it, you will get run over in these end times. Would you agree?
That is true. Yeah, you will. Absolutely.
Well, Mike, we're getting ready to go for this webinar. Last words for you. The webinar is coming up tomorrow night. Your presentation was incredible. Can we talk? I promised people we'd talk just a little bit about aliens, the ones that are underground. I know people are saying they're seeing. As a matter of fact, there was an article came out just 3 or 4 days ago where several professors, Harvard professors and others saying, look, there's alien races that are already living underground.
Yes.
Can you just talk about that just for a minute? Is there anything you can add to that?
Yeah, a lot of these, I guess on the internet, most people get their stories from there, people publishing. But when I tell you something, when you hear about people who have these encounters with these insect-looking things with the big eyeballs, right?
Right.
Those are like, especially the military personnel, right? There are lots of military stories. If you look for military personnel who have had engagements with these things, and because they took that security curtain down a little bit, right? They're not going to prosecute for somebody talking about that anymore. But there have been so many cases of these incursions with these underground things, right? Like outside of California, for example.
Okay.
Lots of every single night for the last year, somebody has witnessed some craft going back down into the earth, right? Or back down into the ocean.
Yeah,
right?
In the ocean. Yeah, off the coast of California. Every night.
Every night off the coast of California.
Yes.
Underneath the water, it's been lit up like a light bulb.
Yes.
Right? When you're
at
the upper altitude. And then when you have the fact that people have gone to these tribes in the earth who haven't been contacted by people. Now, some of these tribes, these same tribes, were building aircraft and worshiping the aircraft that looked like the aircraft from World War II, one of those type things.
What?
They never contacted civilization. They don't know anything about civilization. And it's when they send out these teams to go find these folks, or they run across these folks, right? They always have a person there who will ask them, what they're familiar with and what they're not familiar with. So guess what? When it comes to a picture of the Greys, right?
Yeah.
Our interpretation of the Greys, they just look at it and say, "Oh yeah, yeah, we know what those are." They just have that recognition of them. Now they don't make them. They don't hesitate. They don't pause. They don't do any of that.
They don't worship. They feel natural around them. Are you saying?
Well, they know of them. Okay, right? They know of them. But the one thing they do state is they do not get in their way.
Okay.
They don't get in their way. So they have a type of, they refer to
respect
them as animal people or something along those lines, right? Mm-hmm. They don't see them as human beings, but they'll point at that picture and say, there it is. Now, all these cultures also, if you look at them, the topographical map of these folks, they also have entry points into these deep underground cavernous regions. Every single one of these isolated tribes that they have found. And it's just amazing how all of them, because they'll show them dozens of pictures, but when you show them a gray, instantly they know what they are. And then they'll show you the little etchings, in their history, because they keep a etched history or something of that sort, but they're all familiar with it. And they refer to them in their own native tongue as ant people. Ant people.
Yeah,
just like the Native Americans, right? The folks here in America. There's military stories about here in America that would just blow a person's mind. Same thing happened over here. Same thing is happening in Ohio right now. Seems a lot of people are probably not aware of that, but Ohio's an entryway, you could say.
A portal?
Right? Into I don't know if it's a portal or not, but I'll say it's an entryway into some underground cavernous regions. That's where in Daytona, they found that pyramid, right? That big, huge pyramid. It's very old, deep in the ground in Ohio. So they had a major dig in Ohio. They had major digs they had a major dig in Tennessee, same thing. In the Appalachian Mountains, same thing. In various places of the U.S., they have found some things, right? I mean, pyramids are all over the place, as it turns out. But within these pyramids, you get the same stuff over and over. Something was here, which in fact incorporated those things. Now, ironically enough, right? The very interesting thing. There are some texts that are about 3,000 years old or something like that. Now, Now, I know people are going to say about the age of things, right?
Right.
Like the Egyptians, they say are 10,000 years old or something like that, right? Okay, here's what, let me just bring this up.
Okay.
Archaeologists have an understanding of this. Most people do not, unless they're an archaeologist. When the kings ruled, in any king's list, they listed the kings, yes, like the Sumerians' kings list, right? Like the emerald tablets that people look into and all this other stuff.
Right.
They start to look at these kings living 1,000 years, and many of them ruled in succession. That's incorrect. Many of them ruled at the exact same time.
Multiple kings.
2 kings always ruled in Egypt. There were 2 pharaohs in Egypt. There you go. Okay. And so that age thing, they messed up. For example, the Sumerian tales, they're dated, they're estimated with professionals around 4,000 years ago.
Okay.
Okay. But also, the city that Cain was charged to build is dated at 39,000 years ago. See a similarity?
I see.
Also, the angels that were spoken about during the time of Cain and things, not the seraphim, but am I getting this right? The cherubim, they had 4 wings, right? Yeah. In the Bible. Well, guess what? These in Sumerian, on their cylinder seals and on their pictures, what do you see? You see these beings with what? 4 wings.
4 wings.
Yeah. You also see that synonymous name in the Sumerian text of Herman, but it's given a different name.
I see.
Some of the Hebrew names were translated into, I guess you could say, modern day Hebrew as of late. But when you go back to Aramaic Hebrew, back to the original language, you start seeing other things, right? Like the heavens, of course, that original Hebrew name was not the heavens, it was something else. But when you get into the name of these angels, it's a telltale sign. I personally believe that the Sumerian tales, they tell the simple story of the fallen angels. That's why they have similar characters.
The Anunnaki.
You have these similar characters in there, like Utnapishtim, right? Nehursag, and all these different characters. Same thing. They're overlaid, but most importantly, the watches they had, like the little things on their arms and all this, and all that's named in the text. And what these people have done was they collected all the good stuff. They won't allow the full interpretation of the average person. They won't do that unless a person knows how to layer the text. In other words, overlays, kind of like Revelation and Isaiah, right?
Yeah,
where the heavens roll together as a scroll.
Right.
And then you see that in Revelation. You also see it in Isaiah. You roll it together, you get the complete picture. That all the armies of the earth are destroyed before that happens, according to, the same thing with these ancient tales. But they also lay out every single angel that was involved with humans. For example, you know how women turn into sirens?
Yes.
And that was in the book of Enoch, the book of Giants, the book of Jasher, the book of Jubilees, all these different books. So, but as it turns out, a siren, right? That word siren, the whole thing characterized a woman with wings.
Okay.
That carried a song, right? And when you know it, when you start getting into what they found in America, you start seeing these very things. When you start pulling every single police report you can find with these weird stories, you always, every single, I say about every 5 years, there's always a report that these some person got, confronted something with wings, with a woman's shape, always in a church, somewhere in a church in America, stuff like that, which means all these ancient things, right, that have been hidden from humanity because of the morals of men, which is also documented in the book of Giants and in the Old Testament, that when men become immoral, evil flourishes. And when evil flourishes, those who walk the earth that are known as demons and things like that, well, they're going to have more and more, they're going to exercise more and more, things in the earth without opposition from anybody.
Yeah, they have less resistance.
Because the Bible says a Christian, the followers of Christ are marked with if a follower of Christ, if they lay their hands on somebody, that person's going to be healed. They can cast out devils. All these things will be within that person. But you have less and less people who are opting to follow Christ. What they're following is a hybrid Christ, inclusive of all this woke stuff.
That's
right?
apostasy.
That's not
apostasy.
Christ.
Yeah.
Right. So they're powerless. And so what they end up doing is incorporating all these demonic stories. These stories they know about that they start to glorify are in true stories about demons, just demonic entities, right?
Right.
And they get fascinated with the knowledge of demons. Well, I'm not fascinated with that stuff because you can
infatuated.
see, what they're doing.
Right. They get infatuated with it.
And they begin to, and then in every single case, these same people that do that same thing, what do they end up doing? They end up attacking Jesus. Of all the entities on the earth, they end up attacking Jesus, and they say, well, Jesus was not this, and he wasn't this and this. Why would they do that? Because that's a clear demonstration of what power they're working from and what it does to a person when they start going down those trails, because they absolutely turn against Christ. This is building in the earth, right?
Yes, it is.
As it builds in the earth, then certain bands are being loosed, right? So at some point, a kingdom is going to rise on this earth that nobody wants to see. And we can read that in Revelation.
It's in the
Despite
Bible.
anybody's interpretation, there's some things on this earth. And I'll say it again, the soldiers have confronted. In Afghanistan, they know about it. I can almost guarantee your son knows about it, right?
Yeah.
Pascal, he probably knows about the villages and people in those villages. Things will come up and snatch up 2 sheep and then go run off, and nobody can see what. And the locals there, they're like, oh, that's normal. We just stay out of the way. What do you mean stay out of the way? What do you, it just took 2 goats. What are you talking about? Right? No need to shoot at it. That doesn't do any good. And then the people who work in Colorado at the ranges, they can see them. They've gotten used to seeing them. They don't try to convince anybody. Once you there are things on this earth that are going to be unlocked to everybody. And when they do, people are going to go running like, scared children. But we're not talking about fictitious things or wishful thinking either, but things that people are going to they're going to be confronted by. And those things, by the way, have been watching this entire time. They're not dumb. They're very intelligent. They don't harm humanity. They don't. They do tricks every so often, but you're looking at some sort of animal / something else that's actually out there that is, it did a pretty good job of separating itself from us. They stink to high heaven. They smell like death and some more stuff. But as man gets evil, these things have more and more power, less and less barriers.
There's less and less barriers. Right.
And there's some more writings that indicates these things are they're part of what will cause humanity to be in torment in the end days. Wow. So you're looking at an army of things.
Well, it's kind of Revelation kind of says that, the polyon.
They will come from everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
Right? I know the Bible says out of the bottomless pit, but how many exits are there out of the bottomless pit?
A lot.
Right?
There's a lot of.
We're talking about an earth.
It's not just one incident. There's not just one door of a bottomless pit. There's multiple portals into hell. Right.
And every single time people smell sulfur, right?
Yeah.
They smell, dead bodies. It's a smell they can't describe, but that's normally what people smell. And they're just demons incarnate that'll be, back in action again.
Yeah. I think I want to make sure I leave this place before it gets too bad. Okay.
But the end people are down there.
I know.
The end people manage that. They're managing that whole thing. They're not friends. That's not what they are.
Right. Well, you talk about it in the webinar, folks. He goes into detail and tells you how they're found and where. So I think you definitely want to hear. And that's just a little bit of what you talked about in this webinar. Just a little bit. That's just one category. That's why, folks, you want to get this and hear the whole story. I think it's important. And not just what you said, Mike, but all these different folks that spoke in this one. It's super. But yours was amazing. So thank you for that. I can't wait to watch it again. As a matter of fact, I have watched it twice, taking notes. I got to watch it again. Okay.
I tell you what, guys, it's a blessing, though. It's a blessing among those who have the faith. To have the intestinal fortitude to discuss a subject like that, knowing what's going to happen to humanity, right?
I know.
If a person believes in prophecy, regardless of how they interpret prophecy, they know every other civilization has gone off the face of the earth. They're gone. They're gone. What in the world happened to them? And here we are, just like they are. We're
Here we
back in
are.
the same, area again. And so,
again.
things are repeating themselves, but I believe this will be the last time.
Amen. Oh, yes.
I believe this is it.
I believe it too.
Yeah.
Mike, thank you so much tonight. It's been a phenomenal, fabulous discussion of information, and we're going to be praying a lot too for the nation of Israel and for our nation and for our families and for everyone. Really, we're in troubled times for sure. Look forward to talking to you again next week, Lord willing. What are we going to be talking about, Mike? What in 7 days?
Well, outside the war, right? There's a lot of pressure under a couple of areas filled with magma. That hopefully they don't go off, but hey, who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? I have a feeling a city this time, right? I think a city is going to be affected by magma this time, and I certainly do hope that the scientists they do the right thing.
All right. Well, besides the war, we'll be talking about it. All right. God bless you, Mike. Thank you for being with us tonight. Appreciate it greatly.
It's always an honor, Pastor. God bless.
God bless, brother.